Have you ever wondered why we get trapped in bad habits and maybe thought, how do we break free from them? Or even reversing it, thinking, how do we maximize our chances of success? That's exactly what we're going to explore in this video. If you haven't watched my previous videos in this series, I highly encourage you to go watch them now, because they will make sure that you get the maximum out of this video. I know since you're still here that you value your use of time, that you want to get the maximum out of it. I respect that, therefore I have made sure that these videos are worth your time. Okay. Now you're sold an idea that to get remarkable results it requires 1% improvement, and to be able to succeed you need to put systems in place. We just now added identity shift to that list. You are now ready for this one. Fasten your seatbelt, you are in for a ride, giving you the best tools to maximizing your chances of success. We're now aware that to be able to reinvent ourselves we need to look at our habits, because those are the ones that are going to define what our future is going to look like. But the question is, how do we actually change these habits and overcome the difficulties? To be able to change your habits, we need to start by understanding how they are built. We can split it into 4 pieces: the cue, the craving, the response, and the reward. And they circulate in an infinite loop. To make sure you understand the parts, I will give you an example. If your phone buzzes, it grabs your attention. This is the first part, the cue, also known as the habit trigger. When the phone goes off, we get curious, why did it go off? And we will now crave an answer, which is the second part, the craving. You might get so curious that you end up picking up the phone, which is the third part, our response. This responsive action will reveal the answer, and you will get the satisfaction of knowing, which is the last part, the reward. And this will circulate in an infinite loop, because next time your phone goes off, your brain will remember that you got the satisfaction of knowing why, and therefore you will experience a bigger craving for knowing who it was from or why did it go off. Therefore this urge will increase every time, and before you know it you will find yourself instantly checking your phone when it goes off. Imagine how powerful this could be if you use it to your advantage. And now you're probably thinking, how do I do that? It's actually more simple than you might think. The first thing that triggers a habit was the cue. So let's look a bit closer on that. The habit trigger is created deeply in our unconsciousness, which is very smart in an evolutionary standpoint. When we see or smell food, our brain is instantly triggered to wanting to eat the food to be able to survive, without us having to consciously think about having to eat. However, there's a catch. While our unconscious triggers can be beneficial, they can also be problematic when our negative habits becomes automatic and integrated in our unconsciousness. That is when we find ourselves stuck in patterns without even realizing it. That is why it's so important to bring awareness to your habits, and not before we have consciously acknowledged the habits we can begin to change them. Therefore, I want you to make a list of all your habits you do throughout a given day. I know this probably sounds pretty daunting, but you only have to do it for one day and it will seriously make such a big difference and give you a much better understanding of your habits. And I want you to mark each habit with either a plus, minus, or equal. The plus is for your positive habits you do throughout the day, the minus, the negative, and the last one is for neutral habits. Not until you have made the unconscious the conscious, it will direct your life. When we have detected our habits, we now have an opportunity to manipulate them, both on the cue, the craving, the response, and the reward. And I will in this video give you different tools that you can use to manipulate each of these. But we will firstly start with the cue, the trigger of the habits. And the first tool you can use here are time and location, meaning I will do this habit in this time at this location. For example, I will read for 15 minutes at 6 p.m. in the living room. By doing this, we will bound a specific time and location, making it much more likely to do it. Because when we say we're going to do a habit later or tomorrow, we will never follow through on it. But when we commit to a specific time and a specific location, There's no running away from it. And second tool, habit stacking. This means that after a current habit, I will do the desired habit. For example, after brushing teeth, I will do my skincare, meaning the habit of brushing teeth now will be the cue for you to do your skincare routine. But I want you to be aware that the triggering cue, like brushing your teeth, must be something you do every single day or it won't work for you. And then I have a third tool you can use to manipulate your cue. And this is to actively take control over your cues. As saying goes, the environment is the invisible hand that shapes human behavior. With that said, you can therefore prime your environment to your advantage. And I am actually working on a video on this topic going in more depth because it's an extremely powerful tool that can make your life so much easier. So stay tuned for that by hitting subscribe. But let me just quickly give you an example of how you can prime your environment. For example, if you surround yourself by water bottles by having one in each room, then every time you enter a room, you will have a physical trigger that you need to drink some more water. Therefore, the visibility of a cue will make it much more likely that you will follow through on your goals. The cue could really be anything. It doesn't have to be a physical thing. It could also be like a smell or a specific color or a person that reminds you of the specific habit. But I quickly have a thing you need to be aware of when controlling your cues, because it's very important that you don't mix the cues. For example, if you have your book laying by your sofa and also have your TV controller, then which habits do you think you will gravitate towards? It will always be the habit with the lowest effort that will win every single time. Therefore, it's super important that you don't mix cues together. Remember, this doesn't only apply to the good habits you want to start. It can also be reversed by making the bad habits invisible, like placing your TV controller further away or in a closet. You won't see it and think, that could be nice to watch on television right now. Therefore, having your book visible by your sofa and hiding away your TV controller, you will be so much more likely to read that book instead of watching a show. And this is all the tools you can use to manipulate your cues, but we have 3 more parts we can play with. All of them together will make you unstoppable. You now have the power to control the cues, but that's not all. After our cue, we have our craving. How will you feel if I said that you can make your good habits more attractive and your bad ones more unattractive? Wouldn't that be amazing? So here are the tools you can use. Firstly, we have temptation bottling, mixing a thing you need to do with one that's pleasurable. For example, when you are folding the laundry, you're allowing yourself to put on a show or watch Netflix. Then it will become much more attractive to fold the laundry because you will reward yourself with watching a show. And this is a tool you can use to make the good habits you want to start that might not seem that attractive to make it more pleasurable, because you're going to combine it with one that's pleasurable. And this next one is extremely powerful but doesn't seem like it. Have you ever spent a lot of time with a specific friend group or a specific person and find yourself adopting to the way they talk or use some of the same phrases as they do? I for sure have. If you also have, then you have already felt the power of this tool. Because humans, they are flock animals, meaning that they adapt to others' behaviors and act accordingly to the norms of the flock. Because our biggest need as humans are the feeling of belonging. So why not use that to our advantage? If you wanted to get into better shape, then why not surround yourself with fit people that work out constantly? Because then you will too adapt to this norm of consistently working out. Let's take a few seconds together to think about how this can negatively impact us. Let's try to imagine what will happen if we surround ourselves with people that practiced our bad habit that we wanted to break free from. How do you think that will affect us? Do you think it will be easier to break free from this bad habit, or do you think it will make it much more difficult? Please let me know what you think. Now I have a bonus tool I want to see if you guys can figure out. Let's say I want to save more money. So I say to myself, I will save the money I earn because it will secure me for the future and make me less concerned. And I also want to have a clean house. So I say to myself, a clean house will make me feel much more at peace and satisfied. noticed what I did there in the way I phrased it, then let me know down below and I will like the one that got it right. Okay. Now we have made the good habits more attractive and made them more visible. And we have made the bad habits less noticeable and unattractive. Wouldn't it be nice if we could make the good habits greatly more effortless? You would be ridiculous not to. This is such an important part because yes, we can make it more obvious, but if it still requires a lot of effort, it will be hard for us to stick to it in the long run. And eventually we'll fall back into our bad loops. But by manipulating the third part, the response, we can make it much easier for ourselves to follow through on these habits. And the first tool we can use is to reduce the friction. Let me give you an example. Let's imagine that we have two different people. One that lives 20 minutes away from the gym, and the other guy, his gym is located on his commute home from work. Which one of these do you think is more likely to hit the gym? It will be most likely the guy that drives by his gym on the way home. There's so much less friction because he doesn't have to drag himself out of bed, put on his workout clothes, and then drive 20 minutes to be able to work out. He only have to bring his workout clothes and just swing by on the way from work. And that's an example of how you can reduce friction, making it much easier for you. This first tool, you can also reverse it to break your bad habits. For example, every time you use the TV, you need to unplug it, and next time you have to use the TV, you need to plug it in again and then turn it on. It will make it difficult to do the bad habit, and therefore you will hopefully gravitate towards your good habits, which you reduce the friction on. We can add to this example, so let me give you a thought experiment. Imagine your day is about to come to an end and you're about to go to bed. Quickly you go through the plan for the next day. I will head to work and then it's time to go to the gym. And then I go home and do blah blah blah. Now this morning comes and you wake up a little late. The snooze button was a bit too tempting. As the workday progresses, you realize, oh no, I forgot my workout clothes. Now imagine if you help yourself out last night by packing your workout clothes. Then you will avoid having to use your sleeping morning brain power to remind yourself that you need to pack your workout clothes, and it will seriously take you about 1 or 2 minutes to pack that workout clothes, and it will make such a huge difference because we all know that mornings are a bit stressing sometimes, so why not help yourself out? This last tool is so powerful. We all fall into this trap feeling really motivated to get started and start out great. But what happens when this motivation disappears? You won't be able to live up to the same standards and you will feel too overwhelmed to maintain this standard. Here, this third tool will come in handy. When we start out something new or we feel too overwhelmed with the current habit, remind yourself of this rule. It's called the 2-minute rule. It's as easy as it sounds. If you want to start a reading habit, then read 2 minutes in the book every day. Instead of saying to yourself you need to read a whole chapter. That can be so overwhelming if you just started out. Or for example, if you want to start running, then say to yourself you're going to stretch out for 2 minutes or doing some strength workout instead of saying that you need to run 10 kilometers. That is such a overwhelming goal to start out with. And when you start to get into a really good rhythm, then you can increase it and slowly build it up over time. And this will make sure that you don't get overwhelmed and end up quitting and actually stick to this habit. So by now you have some really powerful tools that can help you so much with changing your habits and break the bad ones. But this last part is very crucial, and if it's not done correctly, it will overrule all the other ones. Let's just rewind and look what a habit loop was. A cue is what triggers a habit loop, like a smell, a sound, or a location, leading us to craving, actioning on this cue. This was our craving, and it's based on the anticipation of the reward that comes from actioning on this cue. Then we will respond on this craving by actioning on it. After the response, we are rewarded with a positively feeling of completion. This reward is the crucial part of the wiring of our brain. It's what's going to determine whether we're going to do it again or not. You see, if we're able to exploit this by telling our brain a desired habit feels good, then our brain will be much more likely to repeat that habit. To say it more simply, what's immediately rewarded is repeated, what's immediately punished is avoided. Which can explain why so many people get trapped in bad habits, because they are immediately rewarded, but what our brain doesn't know is that it's harmful in the long run. On the other hand, most good habits feel unpleasant in the moment, but in the long run they are super beneficial and have the most satisfying results. Therefore, let's help our brain a little on that way. With the first tool, reward yourself by visual measure your progress. This could be like moving a pin from one glass to another, or it could be eclipse, or you can do habit tracking and cross off each time you do a specific habit. With this tool, we can actually intensify some of the first tools I was talking about earlier, making it all much more powerful, because the moving of a pin now will trigger you to do the habit again and again and again. And then the second tool is don't break the chain. First time I heard this, I doubted the power of it and thought it couldn't be that powerful. Oh boy, was I wrong. And after a lot of trial and error, I have felt the power. When I was training for my marathon, I really felt this. Whenever I pushed a run, leaving a few days between the runs, it was so much harder to pull myself together and get out there. I was completely out of my flow and I was feeling really comfortable in my bed. So why would I go out for that run? Because missing more days in a row is a start of a bad loop. I'm a strong believer that one bad habit makes others more applicable. For example, if I fall into the trap of scrolling before bed, I will probably sleep a bit worse than I usually do. Then the next day when I wake up, I will feel more tired and have less willpower. That means I will probably make worse food decisions, decreasing my energy levels, and then I might be more tempted to skip the workout, and when I skip the workout, then I will have less energy. Less energy will lead me to make even worse food decisions, and then I will be more likely to scroll more on my phone and end up going to bed later, and you can see how this loop will just spiral down. Let's pretend that this is happening to you in some extent. Therefore, we will make it into a rule that you won't skip 2 days in a row. This will help you to avoid falling into bad habit loops and keep you in those good habit loops that will compound over time, which we have talked about in the previous videos. Because I understand that it's almost impossible to not skip a day. Missing one day can be an accident, but if you start to miss multiple ones, that's a start of a bad loop. And that is what we want to avoid doing. Because lost days hurt us more than successful help us. Well, you made it through. Congratulations. I know it's a lot to take in, but you don't have to implement all of these tools at once. You need to experiment with it because some of them are going to apply better than others. And if you start to implement these tools, you will for sure start to achieve your goals. Remember, a habit contains of a cue, craving, response, and reward. Make sure that you utilize all of these to your advantage so you can break free from those bad habits and start to excel on your good ones. I'm betting on you, and if you want more content like this on your journey, then hit that subscribe button and join the community of other like-minded people just like you. And then also, I promised a confession at the end of this series, and here it is. The principles I have explained in these videos are actually based on one of my favorite books of all time. It was the first book I read on self-improvement, and this book kickstarted my whole journey on self-improvement. It's amazing for the ones looking to start the journey on improvement, but also people in general interested in self-improvement. I will be linking to the video in the description, so I really hope you guys will check it out and read it for yourself. I seriously want to thank you for following along on this series, actually taking the initiative to change your life. If everybody was just like you, the world would be a fantastic place to be. So keep on going, because your story will inspire others to start their own. If you're thirsty for more, then check out this video. It's about what habits you can start to implement to really change your life. They for sure have completely changed my life, and after doing these, I really started to excel on my self-improvement journey. So if you want to do that as well, then click onto the video and I will see you in there.